Hey friends, I'm Joespresso and welcome to Path of Exile, the Hidden Blade Auto Bomber, or at least my failed attempt at it. Before I get into the details of the build, I want to say I do not recommend trying this build unless you are an experienced build creator. This is at best a half-baked concept and will need way more love and currency in order to get going, in my opinion. Now that that is out of the way, let's talk about the build. The Hidden Blade is a really cool heist unique dagger that triggers an attack skill called Unseen Strike every half second while you are phasing. Since the skill is baked into the dagger, it can be linked with 3 supports, giving you 4 links overall. Unless of course you spend a significant amount of time farming for a squire like I did. Now we can make a 7-link skill. In theory, this gives us enough to make a skill competitive, but there is one key thing holding this skill back. Remember how the skill activates every half second? Yeah, that means we get 2 attacks per second on an attack build. To make things worse, cooldown reduction doesn't really work with the build. The reason for this is that the weapon itself is triggering the skill every half second. Since the trigger is not a skill, it's not impacted by cooldown reduction. Now, cooldown reduction does work on the underlying skill Unseen Strike, which also has a cooldown of 0.5 seconds at the base. However, the trigger is unchanged, so the amount of attacks you can pull off remains the same. The only thing that can be done to increase the attack rate of the skill is to flicker your phasing. What I mean by this is that you activate and deactivate phasing in some way faster than the 0.5 seconds to force the weapon to trigger faster. This means you need to find a way to turn phasing on and off, ideally at the same rate as the cooldown of Unseen Strike. I did some research into methods on how to do this, but ultimately gave up on the approach entirely. So with that avenue of scaling closed entirely, I went to try to make as much use of the attacks we had, starting with Vengeance Cascade. I'm sure by now everyone is aware of Vengeance Cascade. This anoint makes projectile attacks return to you at the end of their flight, potentially doubling the hit rate of skill. With that anoint and the Deadeye Ascendancy, we tried to make the most of our lacking attack speed and found some success. The build actually performs well while mapping. This is due to increasing the projectiles with GMP, chaining from Deadeye, and Fork to mix in a few more projectiles, as well as using Sniper's Mark to get even more projectiles on the field. We tossed in Ice Bite for some flat damage with our Frenzy charges, and Nightblade for a big boost in Crit Strike multi, and here we are. One 0-button build that maps pretty smoothly and hits bosses with all the inexplicable strength of a wet noodle, and that is where the build fell apart for me. High HP targets simply take too long to take down. Now, this is not an unsolvable problem. There are plenty of solutions we could try, but in the end I wanted to spend my time working on something that I had more confidence in. Now if you're a build creator, specifically one that works with projectile attacks often, then maybe you see some obvious paths of improvement to pursue. One solution that I tried was switching out my body for a replica Shroud of the Lightless. I added a bunch of flat damage to all of the Murderous Eye jewels in the abyssal sockets, and then picked up a Tekrod's Gaze to give us a bunch of crit strike chance for free. While the damage was better with this setup, it just wasn't enough. This is a build concept I will likely visit again in the future, but for this league, I'm going to move on. On the bright side, since I spent so much time farming for a squire, I can now try a build that I've wanted to do for a long time. Flicker Strike with a squire. Thanks so much for joining me on this journey, and please let me know if you have any ideas on how to make Hidden Blade show its hidden potential. If you want to see more on the upcoming Flicker Strike build, stick around. So far, it's going much better. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.